ever looked at a Pokemon and thought, that Pokemon needs an evolution, or that Pokemon needs a new ability or move, or I have a cool idea for that Pokemon? Well, I have, and I'm finally putting down my thoughts on video. This is a new series of sorts where every once in a while I'll make a video showing my thoughts and or ideas on a particular subject. In this case, I'm thinking about various changes or additions that would be cool for different Pokemon families. Whether it's a new move, ability, mega, evolution, or just something else I think would be cool or just simply makes sense. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the ideas I came up with, or maybe some ideas of your own if you have any. Anyway, let's move on to the video. What better place to start than with the Bulbasaur family, consisting of Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, and Venusaur, as well as Mega Venusaur and Gigantamax Venusaur. As is the case with many Pokemon early in the Pokédex, especially the Kanto starters, Venusaur has already been given a lot to work with. Not many Pokemon have both a Mega and a Gigantamax form. A change I think would be really interesting for Venusaur is a new ability, one inspired by many of its Pokédex entries. Many of them note that Venusaur is more powerful in the sunlight. Like, duh, it's a grass type. Most of them are more powerful in the sun lore-wise. But starting with Diamond and Pearl, the Pokédex often talks about how Venusaur's flowers smell stronger after the rain. So, taking these as inspiration, I came up with the ability Phenology. Okay, but what is phenology? Well, Google tells me that the word phenology refers to the study of the timing of recurring biological events in plants and animals.
Such as when plants flower, or produce leaves, or when animals migrate, and how they are influenced by seasons, climate, and other environmental factors.
So, how would phenology actually work then? Well, it would have a different effect depending on whether it's rainy or sunny out. During sunny weather, Venusaur's attack and special attack would be boosted by 50%, while in the rain, the strong smell given off by its flower would lower the opponent's attack and special attack by 50%. I'm no expert in competitive battling, but I could definitely see Venusaur with Phenology being incredibly powerful when combined with Solar Beam in the sun, or as a good support Pokemon in the rain to help weaken opponents while also not having to worry about its weakness to fire. So, what do you think of this idea? Here's the family led by the Pokemon that is probably the most loved one besides Pikachu, the Charmander family, with Charizard at the lead, along with Charmander and Charmeleon, along with its two Megas and its Gigantamax form. I came into this feeling a bit lost as to what I do with Charizard, as a Mega is off the table as Charizard already has two, it's a 3-stage line so I can't add an evolution, and I felt like adding a new evolution for Charmeleon was out of the question because I can't think of anything that would match Charizard. So I turned to the Pokédex for inspiration, noticing a recurring thing in the red, blue, leaf green, emerald and sword entries. Charizard's flames can melt anything, with boulders being mentioned several times. So, taking this as my inspiration, I came up with a new move for the family, Molten Flame. I imagine it to be pretty similar to Flamethrower, but taking a page out of the move Freeze Dry's book, Molten Flame is super effective on rock types. Why aren't there more moves like this? Ones that are super effective on types they ordinarily wouldn't be. This is probably gonna be a recurring inspiration I'll use for new moves. And last up of the Kanto starters is the Squirtle family, consisting of Squirtle, Wartortle, and Blastoise, along with Blastoise's Mega and Gigantamax forms. I was already pretty sure what I wanted to do with Blastoise, and that was to give it the Steel type to go with its Water typing. Yes, this does mean it gains the exact same typing as the Piplup family, but hey, if we can have 3 firefighting starter families, we can have 2 Water Steel starter families. Anyway, simply giving Blastoise the Steel typing just because it has metallic cannons wasn't enough for me, so I made a new Pokédex entry to further justify it. Blastoise, the shellfish Pokemon, and the evolved form of Wartortle. Recent studies have revealed that the steel making up Blastoise's cannons makes up more of its body than previously thought, with its shell and skeleton being partially made of steel. With maybe some references in Wartortle's Pokédex entries about its tail containing a lot of iron, and maybe Squirtle's noting it can be found in water with high iron content, so Blastoise's steel typing feels a little less out of nowhere. Plus, this helps balance out the Kanto starters, as Blastoise is the only mono-typed Kanto starter, and I like the idea of, if any of them are dual-typed, they're all dual-typed. I did consider giving Blastoise a water-type move that was super effective against steel types, but I decided not to, so that the 3 Kanto starters all have a different change, and also because steel doesn't resist water. On to the non-starters, we have the Caterpie family, consisting of the happy baby Caterpie, the moody teenager Metapod, and the mellowed out Butterfree, along with Butterfree's glittering Gigantamax form. I initially thought about giving Butterfree a Mega, but I didn't have any particular ideas about what a Mega Butterfree would look like. And because Gigantamax Butterfree exists, I decided to think about moves and abilities instead. I did notice an interesting idea that appears a few times in the Pokédex. Butterfree has water repellent scales. So I decided to take that and give it the ability Hydrophobic Scales, which simply gives Butterfree an immunity to water-type moves. That's it. Do I think this will make Butterfree more viable? No. Do I think this will be completely useless to Butterfree? No. But remember, I'm not trying to make every Pokemon more viable, I'm just trying to think of a change for each family that I think is interesting and makes some form of sense for the Pokemon in question. That's all. Also, not every change can be super mega awesomely amazing, right? Terrifying the characters of the anime since Generation 1, we have Beedrill, along with their young Weedle and Kakuna, as well as the terrifying Mega Beedrill. Thank Arceus those guys weren't making up those giant swarms. I was pretty stumped on Beedrill for a while. I couldn't find anything in the Pokédex to inspire anything. I know, I was surprised too. Beedrill already has a Mega, and I couldn't think of another evolution for Kakuna, so I started thinking about already existing moves that Beedrill could learn, but I still couldn't think of any good ideas from them. So, next, I thought to myself, what do bees do? Well, they make honey, they make hives, and they sting. And then it hit me. Bees don't tend to survive stinging something. And there are moves out there that knock out the user, but none of them are bug type. But what if one of them was?
Hey!
So I came up with the move Vile Sting, the ultimate bug type move out of Z moves or max moves. It's basically a bug type explosion, extremely powerful but knocks out the user. Just for clarification, since I didn't make it super clear before rendering this clip, Vile Sting doesn't mean Beedrill literally explodes. It's more that it uses all of its strength and energy to sting the opponent. So much so that it knocks itself out from using up all of its energy. Okay, back to the video. I have to admit, there is something funny to me about Beedrill having such a move, but I can't deny that it honestly makes a lot of sense to me. And it could also be a good move for other bee Pokemon, but I'll try not to repeat things when I reach them. to one of the first Pokemon many Pokemon fans probably caught, we have Pidgey, along with its big siblings Pidgeotto and Pidgeot, and their ultimate form, Mega Pidgeot. This one was easy. Pidgeot is known for its ability to fly at Mach 2 speed, which means it can fly at twice the speed of sound, way faster than any known real-world animal. Funnily enough, Pidgeot has a speed stat of 101, which sounds really fast until you realize that so many other Pokemon have a higher speed, such as Furfrou, Mismagius, Durant, and Ice Cube. Hell, even fellow fully evolved regional birds Swallow, Talonflame, and Kilowattrel are faster than Pidgeot. So comparing all their speed stats, flying at twice the speed of sound is somehow just average for the regional birds. Anyway, ignoring the hilarity that Pidgeot would only come 4th place in a race of the regional birds despite being twice the speed of sound, I decided to focus on the fact that Pidgeot can easily break the sound barrier, which would create a sonic boom, which is a very destructive phenomenon, despite what the actual move Sonic Boom would imply, which sounds like it would make for a very powerful attack. So I came up with the move Sonic Breach, a flying type move that hits the opponent twice. First from Pidgeot crashing into the opponent after creating and flying ahead of the Sonic Boom, the second from the Sonic Boom catching up and hitting the opponent as well. As a side note, the second hit would be a sound-based attack, so Pokemon with soundproof or other similar abilities would be immune to it, and it would also hit all other Pokemon on the field. I feel kinda bad for ragging on Pidgeot a lot here, so to try to make it up to it, I threw together something to kinda depict what Sonic Breach would kinda look like. I honestly don't know if it's glorious or hideous. I hope you enjoy.
It comes out into open fields to steal food from stupid travelers.
The first family consisting of 2 regional lines. We have Cantonian Rattata and Raticate, as well as their Alolan cousins. The Rattata family are another I feel a bit unsure about. I did want to give each Raticate an evolution, but I ultimately couldn't come up with any good ideas. I admit, this is pretty boring, and I'd be open to revisiting the idea of a Raticate evolution someday, but I simply came up with the ability Gnawing Fangs, which would double the power of the family's biting moves, such as Hyper Fang and Crunch. This is pretty much just a better Strong Jaw, which only raises the power of biting moves by 50% as opposed to Gnawing Fangs raising them by 100%. Yeah, this one isn't very good, but it's the best idea I really have right now. I'm sorry.
I wonder what that is.
It's a Spearow, the tiny bird Pokemon, and its family are the one that caused Dash to almost lose his life just barely out of Pallet Town, with the same Spearow later evolved into Fiore, causing trouble later on. Here's one I'm being a little more daring with. I was absolutely stumped on what to do with Fiore. Nothing in the Pokédex inspired me, and since I haven't done one yet, I'm giving Fiore an evolution. Wanting to stick with Spearow and Fiore's names beginning with words that rhyme, I searched for words that rhyme with spear and fear. Unfortunately, nothing was super good in my opinion, but I did see one that sounded sorta interesting. Domineer, which means to assert one's will over another in an arrogant way. So, changing the second E to an A, I came up with Domineero, a dark flying type evolution for Fearow. I knew from the start that I wanted Domineero to remain reasonably simple, as Spearow and Fearow are pretty simple in their design. The Pokédex notes how Fearow is known for its long neck and beak, so Domineero has to keep those. I figured that to domineer fellow Pokémon, it has to look imposing. But since Fearow is a pretty lanky Pokémon, I decided to increase the small mass of feathers on Fearow's back into a massive floof of feathers, which it can puff up to appear bigger as opposed to actually being notably bigger. Kinda like a peacock's tail, but as a cape of sorts, if that makes any sense. It took me a little bit to get the colours and their shades right, because I wanted Domineero to look threatening, but not be brightly coloured, as I wanted to keep Spearow and Fearow's colour schemes of varying browns, black and pink and red. I mostly took inspiration from Spearow, making the outer parts of the wings red and making the cloak quite dark, while darkening the other colours to fit with the dark typing. So here is Domineero, the arrogant bird Pokemon, and the evolved form of Fearow. Using its long neck to stand tall and giant mass of feathers on its back to appear big, Domineero prefers to intimidate other bird Pokemon into fleeing so it can eat the local bug Pokemon all to itself. However, any attempt to attack it will be met with a furious and violent reaction.
We'll show them! Go Arbok!
Anyone who watched the first Pokemon series remembers Jesse's Ekans and later Arbok. Although I grew up with Generation 4, so I was a bit late to the party. Arbok is famous for its patterned hood, which apparently has over 20 possible different variants. Although only 6 have been confirmed? Okay then. Anyway, in-game, Arbok's pattern has been pretty much the same since FireRed and LeafGreen, being virtually the same as the pattern seen in Generation 1. Meanwhile, Generation 2, as well as Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald have a notably different design, but this one hasn't been seen in-game since. And any Arbok transferred between games will gain the pattern of that game, which is a shame if you ask me. We have also seen 3 other unique patterns in one of Professor Oak's lectures, as well as a few others in various other media. By the way, this is a lot more than 6. So, taking inspiration from this, I decided to make these various patterns of Arbok some form of regional variant, with a different design in each region that Arbok and or Ekans can be found in. Currently, this list of regions in the games includes Kanto, Johto, Sinnoh, Kalos, and Alola, as well as Kitakami, which I am counting as a region for this video. Anyway, the other difference between these Arbok with different patterns is that each will have their poison-type moves be super effective on a particular type that it isn't normally super effective against, each based on the region that the pattern is from. For example, I like the idea of the Sinnohan pattern variant being super effective against ice types because Sinnoh is known for its colder climate compared to the other regions. Cantonian patterned Arbok would be super effective on bug types because during Gen 1, bug type was weak to poison. Also, I'm choosing this pattern to be the Cantonian pattern because it made its debut in a Kanto-based game, Red and Blue. As for Johto, I think a Johtonian patterned Arbok's poison-type moves should be super effective on dark types, as this is the only type introduced in Generation 2 that isn't immune to poison. Unfortunately, this kind of idea doesn't really work for Kalos, as the fairy type is already weak to poison. So instead, I decided to make Kalosian patterned Arbok super effective against fighting types, because Mega Lucario is the first Mega Pokemon we encounter there, and again, because Steel is immune to poison. Over in Alola, I decided that Alolan patterned Arbok would be super effective on water types, due to all the water in the region. And also because Hoenn isn't on the list. Otherwise, it would be the one super effective on water. That just leaves Kitakami. I felt a little stumped by this for a while, but I ultimately decided on Kitakami patterned Arbok being super effective on other poison types. Why? Because poison types are very heavily featured in the Teal Mask and Mochi Mayhem DLCs there. I'm not sure if these effects would be an ability or just an inherent feature of Arbok, but regardless, I think this is my favourite idea of the video.
Well, there is still one left, but
Professor, I'll take it!
Well, in that case...
Pikachu.
Its name is Pikachu.
Oh, hi, Pikachu!
The perfect family to finish this video on, the mascot itself, Pikachu and its family consisting of Pichu and the twins Cantonian Raichu and Alolan Raichu, as well as Pikachu's Gigantamax form. Now this is an idea I've had noted down for ages, and now I'm finally working on it. I've always loved the idea of what I've called ancestral forms, which are basically Pokemon from thousands to millions of years ago. Still recognizable as the ancestor of one or more families, kinda like Paradox Pokemon, but ones that make a bit more sense. These Pokemon are intended to be the ancestor of all the Pika clones, so that includes the Pikachu family, Plusle, Minun, Pachirisu, Emolga, Dedenne, Togedemaru, Morpeko, and the Palmy family, and maybe some of the other rodent Pokemon. I've had the idea of using beta designs for Pokemon to help inspire these ancestral forms, and since we got one for Pichu, I can use it. This ancestral family is made up of a two-stage line, Picdai and Picodai. Picodai's name comes from the word Kodai, which is the Japanese word for ancient, while Picdai is simply a contraction of Picodai. Picodai is an early normal-type rodent Pokemon, using its constantly growing teeth to gnaw through the hard shells of prehistoric berries, then filling its cheeks with the berries to absorb the energy from them, as well as store it for when needed. The trees these berries grew on are believed to have frequently been struck by lightning, filling the berries with electricity. Over time, Picodai and his descendants became increasingly reliant on these berries to help fuel its electric-type moves. Eventually, this caused their descendants to lose their normal typing and become able to generate electricity on their own, becoming the modern Pika clones we know today. And this is Picdai and Picodai, the electricity-wielding mice Pokemon. Picodai absorbs electricity from berries of trees that were struck by lightning, absorbing the electricity into its own body through its cheeks, allowing it to use powerful electric-type moves, despite only being a normal-type Pokemon. When filled with electricity, its fur stands on end and sparkles of electricity, often paralyzing opponents that make the mistake of using a move that makes direct contact. So, what did you think of my ideas? Are they decent, or are they a load of rubbish? You can be honest. I know I will at least need to revisit that Raticate evolution idea someday. As a quick side note, future videos like this probably won't be as long as this one, because this took forever to make. I'll probably cut down the ideas from 10 to about 5 or so, just to lighten the load on me a bit. Also, I'd love to know your thoughts on this type of video. Any feedback at all is appreciated. I've been wanting to make these types of videos for literal years now, and I've finally been inspired enough to do it. You can thank LOTTIE'Mon for that, with the amazing videos of a similar type she's been making, and they've given me the inspiration I needed. And as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I shall see you for the next video. Bye!